The New England Patriots, the most dominant franchise in the 21st century, at 2 points during this century, they were the winners of 2 dynasties, which led to them tying Pittsburgh with the most Super Bowl wins among a franchise in NFL history with 6. However, New England is upon 4 seasons out from being led by future Hall of Famer Tom Brady, and since his departure, the team has been to the postseason once. Now, this team has made some changes that will hopefully bump that number to 2. For fantasy, were these changes enough to attract more fantasy players to drafting New England Patriot players? Let's find out. How's everyone doing today? My name is Aaron, and this is the Game Day Hour. Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Team Review. In this series, we take a look at each and every 32 NFL franchises and see what they offer for fantasy football. Here, we analyze a team's quarterback, running back, wide receiver 1 and 2, tight end, and starting kicker. Our goal is to analyze last season and see if these players are worth drafting, and if so, when and where. Today, we analyze the New England Patriots.
Mac Jones, New England Patriots quarterback.
So after Tom Brady retired, Cam Newton took over for a year, and they didn't make the playoffs. So the year after, they cut Cam Newton in favor of this rookie from Alabama. And now this rookie has been the starter for the last 2 seasons and has made 1 postseason appearance, almost made a second last year, but came pretty close, didn't make it at all. And now he's on to his 3rd season. That's, of course, Mac Jones, and we're going to take a look at his stats from last season. So last season, he played 14 games. He had 288 completions, that's 17th, with 442 attempts, that's also 17th, and his percentage was 65.2%, that's tied for 17th, so even stats, just in the top 20. He had 2,997 passing yards, that's 18th, 14 touchdowns, that's tied for 23rd, and 11 interceptions, that's tied for 101st. So he didn't really have that great of stats, which led to 188 total fantasy points. That's 24th among all quarterbacks. So a lot of this has to do with the fact that a defensive coordinator was the offensive coordinator for Mac Jones, and it just didn't mesh well. And he even showed a lot of frustration last year, has been benched a few times, and now with a new coordinator, maybe life changes. But now it brings me to my projections. Is he somebody I would draft? Potentially just because of his ranking. So I rank the top 25 with quarterbacks, tight ends, and kickers, and the top 50 with wide receivers and running backs. And I have him at the 24th spot, so he's just in my top 25. So he's a potential pickup, but not a certain pickup. For me, he is a quarterback 2, rounds 12 through 14. So if you do pick him up, I don't imagine he's going to be picked up in the high rounds. You're probably not going for a quarterback. And maybe he's just the best guy out there because all the rest of the quarterbacks have just been taken. If you go with Mac Jones, he has had an increase with wide receivers. They recently picked up Juju from Kansas City, so he has more targets to go with. So maybe things change for the guy, but who knows?
Ramondre Stevenson, New England Patriots running back.
So despite picking up James Robinson in the offseason, Patriots are going to go with Ramondre Stevenson. And for good reason. Ramondre had a really good season last year. I didn't even see it coming. So let's see what he did. In 17 games, he had 210 carries, which was tied for 16th. He had 1,040 rushing yards, which was 13th. 5 touchdowns, that's not a lot, but he probably had some in the air as well. He was tied for 24th. And he had 236 total fantasy points, which was 9th. So he played pretty well last season for a team that wasn't led by a good offensive coordinator. And maybe it's because they went with a more rush attack offense. I'm not completely sure. But he's projected pretty highly, somewhere in the top 20. And that's where I have him. He is somebody I would draft as a running back 2. Somewhere in rounds 4 through 8 is where I would draft him. And I have him ranked 15th among all running backs. The only concern I have is if they try using James Robinson more. If you run with that 2 backfield, and Stevenson doesn't get a lot of points unless he's close to the red zone. If he's close to the red zone, he's going to get a lot of touches there. And you want to see these touchdowns go up if you're Ramondre. So if you pick him, just hope that, the touches, go up and that he gets more touchdowns. The rushing yards, don't worry about that. Just get in the end zone.
Juju Smith-Schuster, New England Patriots wide receiver 1.
Now a Super Bowl champion, Juju has moved on to New England. And even though he's playing with, I would say, a lesser quarterback in comparison to Patrick Mahomes, I think this might be a breakout season on the horizon. Last season at Kansas City, he played 16 games. He had 78 receptions, which was tied for 22nd, 933 receiving yards, so he had a lot of yards last season, which is 24th, but only 3 touchdowns, that was tied for 65th, and he only had 179 total fantasy points, that was 28th. And even though I say that Mahomes is a better quarterback, I will say that he had a better receiver, well, really a better tight end. And that's really what Mahomes goes to more often now is the tight end position. So with Mac Jones, maybe Juju becomes a very reliable number one for Jones. Which leads me to the projections. Would I draft him? I would. As a wide receiver 2 and 3, I see him being drafted in the later rounds, 9 through 13, and I have him ranked 31st among all wide receivers in the league. He's had a drop since the Pittsburgh era. And so, even though I say this about him like he's going to get bigger numbers this year, I still would be very careful drafting him in case I'm somehow wrong. But in case he doesn't get as many touches as he needs. But if you think that he is going to get a lot of touches, then these are the rounds I would see him being drafted as, and I'd see him potentially as a flex position. So I'd keep an eye on Juju and see just how he's doing at the training camps right now, and potentially he is a draft pick worth having.
Devontae Parker. New England Patriots wide receiver 2.
The former Miami Dolphin and the one-time Patriot Devontae Parker is a wide receiver that I always have high hopes for, and they never meet except for one season, and that was 2019 when he had over 1,000 yards. But since he's been with New England, it has been not really fun. So let's see what's happened last season. He played 13 games, and in those 13 games, he had 31 receptions for only 539 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, and 97 total fantasy points, which was tied for 69th. Now, I don't believe he was the number one last. That was Jacoby Myers, who has now moved on to Las Vegas. But Parker, for me, should have more stats than these. I feel like he's just... He has so much potential, but he never meets it. And because of that, he is not somebody I would draft. Now, if you do, then maybe he has a different season this year, but I would still see him as a late round draft pick, a wide receiver 4, rounds 14 through 16, or maybe a free agency pickup, but I don't have him ranked on my list, so he is not somebody I would draft. The thing is like, his time at Miami, I thought would have made him a super high prospect at New England, but to me, he doesn't seem like he's that high prospect. But maybe this year he'll change some minds, so let's hope for a better season for Devontae Parker.
Hunter Henry. New England Patriots tight end.
So the tight end position for New England is kind of tricky. They have 2 number ones. They have Hunter Henry and they have Mike Gesicki, who came over from Miami. But at the current moment, it's Hunter Henry who is going to get the majority of the snaps. So we're going to take a look at Hunter Henry today and see his stats. Last season, he had 17 games and he caught 41 receptions, which was tied for 98th. He has 509 receiving yards, that's 81st, and 2 touchdowns, which was tied for 92nd. And he had 100 total fantasy points, which was 21st. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Mike Gesicki has better stats than that. But Henry is a tight end who is draftable and somebody who I would recommend picking up because he is kind of like a security blanket. Not too much, but sort of like a security blanket. And those security blanket tight ends are some that you want. So, is he somebody I would draft? Yes, but as a tight end too. I see him being drafted in the late rounds, 11 through 15. I normally am not going to really say 16 for some of these players because I have that reserved for defense and kickers. And among all tight ends in the league, I have him as 16th. Now, I think the caution when it comes to drafting this guy is the fact that there is 2 tight ends there. So, in case he manages to put up big stats in the time that he's in, I would be very careful drafting a tight end on the team with a really good second tight end right behind them. It's something that I fear that teams like the Dallas Cowboys will end up happening because of Ferguson and Hendershot. Who's going to start the majority of snaps? Who knows? We'll get to that later. But just be wary of teams that have multiple tight ends or multiple great players at a position aside from the wide receiver position.
Chad Ryland. New England Patriots kicker.
And lastly, we have a rookie kicker. Now, I was kind of surprised to see that Nick Folk wasn't going to be the starter, or at least is not the starter right now. He's number 2 on the depth chart, and they've given the reins to Chad Ryland. And so I was thinking, Chad Ryland, I haven't heard of him. Well, he's a rookie coming out of Maryland, so let's see what happened last season. He was 19 for 23 and made attempted field goals, so that's 82.6%. He was 97.5% from extra point. Now, I'm a little more critical on that one because that one's placed at the 2-yard line versus the extra points in the NFL, which are placed at the 15. But it makes up, he has a long 53. Now, anything above 50 in college is impressive to me, and he had 96 points. He was drafted in round 4, pick 112. And I'm confused why they already put him in the starting lineup. They still have Nick Folk on the team because Folk is not a bad kicker. He is a pretty good kicker. So because I'm confused by this, it's not somebody I would draft. But if you do and you think he is going to be better, then he's a kicker too in round 16, and he's not ran. The problem I have is that, like, how in the world are you going to put this guy as a starter with those type of stats? I know that he doesn't miss a lot. He doesn't miss often. But you gotta, in my opinion, you gotta be pretty perfect at the extra point percentage. It's 97.5%. Unless the one he missed was blocked. That's the only way I can be like, well, okay, I understand. But, hey, maybe I'm just not looking at it correctly because Maryland also didn't score a lot last season. He might just be a better player if that offense was better at Maryland. So I'm going to actually take back a little bit of what I said, but I'm still not going to draft him yet. Maybe after this season, I will. But it's only a matter of time before we can see for ourselves. And that'll do it for today's episode. I changed it up a little bit. I'm going to be able to still put out 3 episodes in this upcoming week following today, which is Saturday, and the video is going up on Sunday. But I'm going to be able to finish the AFC East by next Sunday. So in order, we have the Jets on Wednesday, the Dolphins on Friday, and the Bills on Sunday. And speaking of which, other videos, I might push one of those videos back, assuming the NBA Finals ends up concluding either Monday or Thursday. I'll be able to do a little bit of a recap video on that, and it looks like it's going to happen sooner than I expect, so maybe that Bills video will be pushed back a little bit. Who knows? But I thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like, comment down below, and subscribe. Tap the bell notification. And also share this with other people on all platforms, any platforms, go right ahead. And next up, of course, we have the New York Jets. So I thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day. Take care. And I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.